Hello, my friends, and welcome to another devotional connection. I get asked a lot of questions from time to time from friends and folks who knew me in the old life and now meet me in this space that I'm in right now. And I get asked questions like, what influenced you into becoming a pastor? Or what things influenced you in the kind of pastor you want to become? And I thought about it, and one of the greatest stories and the greatest influences is my father. I was watching him when he was preaching down at New Mount Pleasant Baptist Church in Los Angeles, and something had happened, and I got asked to come up to the pulpit by one of my family members that was in the choir. And one of the biggest influences on me and the kind of pastor that I want to become is fearfully walking up to that pulpit to answer the summons of a family member, knowing that I'm not supposed to interrupt my father. And I'm in this catch-22 space of trying to be obedient and trying not to be disobedient. And I've got two contradicting things happening. And so I turn to walk up the stage into the pulpit, and I've got to go past the old man as he's preaching. And just the kind of man that he was, he looks at me. He says, "Excuse me, audience, this is my son." And he comes down to one knee, calls me to him, and asks me what I need. And I hastily pointed to the choir because my family member was over there who had summoned me, and he said, "Go." And I went and got the note and gave it to him as I was asked to do. And he looked at it, read it, and said, "You okay?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Okay, go sit down." And as I was going to sit down, he acknowledged me again to the congregation as his son. I think about the story of blind Bartimaeus in Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. As Jesus is coming to Jericho, his disciples were in a large crowd, and there was a bunch of people with him, and they come up upon this man who's on the roadside begging, and this man, hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth, and he must have heard who this was from other people, he must have known, word must have spread, the rumor mill must have begun, and he yells out, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." And just like good Christians, people rebuked him. They told him to be quiet. They told him to stop asking him. But he pays them no mind like a good rebellious child should. And he shouts all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stops and calls him. And the disciples go and the people go and get the blind man. They say, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." And they throw his cloak aside, and he jumps to his feet, and he gets walked over to Jesus. And Jesus asks him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the blind man says, "Rabbi, I want to see." And Jesus, who is in the midst of teaching and preaching, who's in the middle of showing the world God, who's in the process of saving all of mankind for all time, says, "Go, your faith has healed you." And Bartimaeus immediately receives his sight and follows Jesus along the road. One of the best stories that I have in ministry up until this moment is when I was preaching at another church, and as I was talking about how God must have felt watching the death of his son, and I was going through that process, I had no idea what was going on in the congregation. I just knew that there was a lady there crying her eyes out. And I'm thinking that she's really into the sermon. I had no idea that the words that I had said hit her so hard because she had lost her son. And she was dealing with the pain in that moment. And when the box of tissues didn't help, and I could see people kind of leaning and looking her way. I just felt it in my spirit. I don't know if it was, I'm going to say it was God. Whether it was right or wrong was irrelevant. At that moment, I stopped the sermon and said, we need to help. And I walked over and asked her to stand and embraced her. And the church came over and we embraced her. And as a church, we sat there hugging, and then we prayed. She needed to be loved in that moment. She needed to see Jesus in that moment. And nothing else that I was doing was as important as her need in that moment. And I thought about, what kind of pastor do I want to be? I used to hear a statement when I was young that said, you're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. I don't want to be that kind of pastor. That's no earthly good, because I'm so busy doing the work that I've forgotten why the work needs to be done. Jesus loved people. The ministry was to serve the people. And we can't forget that. He stopped what he was doing. He stopped where he was going to help a blind beggar on the side of the road, calling his name. And the beggar was bold enough to say exactly what he wanted. And Jesus delivered. That's the kind of person I want to be. That's the kind of pastor I want to be. That's the kind of ministry I want to have. And that's the kind of impact that will make me believe that I'm doing the work of God. Just a thought I had today. I hope the week finds you well. Talk to you again soon.